as many of you may already know, there are 3 novel products that we're creating, that we're shaping. The most important one that I'll be discussing in some detail, first of all, today, is a product for traumatic brain injury. There's also a very significant product for the treatment of obstructive sleep apnea. And the third one is a disease called temporomandibular joint dysfunction, known as TMD for short, for obvious reasons. So the whole premise of why I'm involved with IHL and why IHL chose me was to create a pathway where these drugs can be registered and these can be prescribed by a normal doctor in a safe manner. So this supersedes the special access scheme. So for those of you who are familiar with how cannabis products are given today in Australia, they're given under a special carve-out under Australian law where doctors can prescribe non-TGA registered products under the special access scheme where the doctor takes responsibility, and this is basically a loophole in the law that says Australian registered products do not have the capability to treat a certain disease. Let's give the doctor some flexibility to use a product at their own discretion to assist their patients while that product is going through the approvals process. But the minute the approval of a true medicinal cannabis product has arrived, then the doctor no longer has that flexibility to use a special access scheme for that particular disease. So it does mean that as soon as these products get registered or approved with the TGA, we automatically supersede all the off-label special access scheme prescribing, and it becomes de rigueur for doctors to prescribe the registered product. So having said that, in the near term, the company is going to be able to generate near-term revenue or immediate-term revenue through the special access scheme, as Joel kindly mentioned as well. So every team has multiple key members, and we're doing research across multiple different medical areas. So it would be unreasonable for any individual to have that body of knowledge because it's a profound body of knowledge required. So I've given a little bit of background about myself. In addition to being an anaesthetist and the Chief Medical Officer here at Impression Health, I'm also a research fellow at Swinburne University, and most of the work I do through Swinburne is in the medicinal cannabis space. So we're involved with 12 clinical trials, of which I'm a chief investigator or the medical officer associated with it. The second gentleman on the immediate right of me there is Dr. Simon Incas. He's a Melbourne University guy. He's a very senior dentist, and he's the only dual qualified endodontist and specialist prosthodontist in Australia. So he's done a double fellowship, and of which he's the only guy. And he's our clinical lead on gingivitis. So essentially his clinical practice is a pure gingivitis and periodontitis practice. So very hyper-specialized in that one particular area. And he would see more patients than probably anybody in the state and possibly anybody in Australia in those particular fields. So very well qualified. In addition to that, you'll notice that in Minnesota in the USA, he's done a specific fellowship which has taught him a lot of those skills that he's bringing to Australia today. So he'll be the main lead on all our gingivitis trials, and he's been advising us already to this point in terms of the product formulation that we'll be providing to the market. The third guy is an internationally recognized professor, Professor Michael Stubbs, again based in Melbourne. He's one of 2 oral medicine specialists Australia-wide. So these guys have got special training where they've done dental training and they've done further postgraduate training in oral medicine. And it's a small specialty, but it's a very unique specialty, and it gives them a specific focus. In Michael's case, his niche area is temporomandibular joint dysfunction, and also other rare neurological diseases of the face, including atypical facial pain, burning mouth syndrome. And he's been anecdotally treating many thousands of these patients over the years with a variety of sort of homemade type products because no existing product exists. So he's had to effectively manufacture his own from scratch. So again, a very powerful addition to our team and specifically assisting us with researching one particular area which has a massive unmet need in Australia. Dr. Ron Jitu, he's former head of the Alfred Hospital Neurosurgery Department, a very well credentialed neurosurgeon. And just by way of background, there's only about 40 neurosurgeons in the state, and there may be close to 300 or so Australia-wide. So it is a very niche group. He specifically has an interest in traumatic brain injury and has done lots of research under the neurosciences research allocation at the Alfred Hospital. and he's a research fellow at the National Trauma Research Institute with a specific project of traumatic brain injury. So perhaps the most credentialed guy that we could have got for this particular role. And last, by no means least, on the far right, Dr. David Cunningham, based in Melbourne again. He's one of 3 sleep physicians Australia-wide who have a pure sleep practice. So many of you may know, sleep physicians tend to be either respiratory physicians or neurologists. He's a pure sleep physician. He's the owner of St. Vincent's Hospital Sleep Lab and a very well-published, very well-credentialed sleep physician. And he's been doing the majority of the research shaping work on our sleep drug. And right at the bottom, these people are colleagues of mine that I work with at Swinburne. So Professor Con Stow is the scientific head of the Medicinal Cannabis Research Collaboration. I'm the clinical head of that unit. His professorship is all about illicit drug research, in excess of 500 published papers in illicit drugs, possibly the most published guy in Australia in the illicit drug space. He's done work for TAC, Vicroads, in terms of determining what is the safe level of cannabinoids in the bloodstream when being roadside tested. We've jointly done research on propofol testing, what is the maximum safe level that a patient can have and still drive and function safely. Certainly a global expert in all illicit drugs. Dr. Sarah Catchlove, PhD, is our clinical trials coordinator that's employed full-time by us. And Dr. Gal Wong, another full-time employee of the Medicinal Cannabis Research Unit, he's our medical prescriber and also a cannabinoid drug discovery researcher. So these are guys that you will see frequently in, over the next few years as we commercialize these drugs.